Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Made Possible by Pop Culture, the podcast. Sorry if I'm popping my peas. My name is Danielle Turchiano. I'm your host and producer. And just for those who may be tuning in for the first time, this is the podcast where I ask my guests to talk about a piece of pop culture that greatly influenced them as children, but also something that is just as influential and maybe even inspiring today. So on this episode, we have a very special guest, Chris Hayner. He's the senior editor at GameSpot. He previously wrote for websites called Zap To It, you might have heard of that. IGN, you might have heard of that. Hollywood Reporter, you might have heard of that. So many more. He also has a podcast called Big Kid, which covers the love of everything from wrestling to baseball cards to Lego, and my favorite, Disney, which he brought me on to talk about. And that was awesome. And so now I'm bringing him on to my podcast to talk about what, Chris? Something very similar.
Oh yeah, we're still talking Disney because when you said something from like our past, immediately my mind clicked to the TGIF episodes where they go to Disney World because that was a cornerstone of not only my childhood but like my life until the first time I went to Disney World and saw what it was actually like and how it was nothing like what I thought it was going to be like, and not in a bad way. I had weird thoughts about Epcot. I thought all of Epcot was in the ball.
Wait, this is very interesting to me because what I'm hearing is that it sounds like you got your idea of what Disneyland or Disney World was based on what you saw on the episodes only. So I want to talk about what episodes you're talking about, because I do feel like different TGIF shows made a point to show different parts of Disney for the good and the bad. So let's pick one, start with one, and we'll go from there.
The biggest one I think is probably the original one. It's when Full House went to Disney and like there was a parade where Michelle got made princess for a day and was basically put in charge of the Walt Disney Corporation. I want to say that like Uncle Jesse played a concert.
He did. Yeah. That was why the family was going, because and I think the Beach Boys, if I'm remembering correctly, he had like rehearsal in Disney and then they were going to play a big show. And so like the whole family went down, and I thought that was fascinating because it's a family of 1 million people. And I feel like on all of these episodes, they take the whole family and it's a family of 1 million people, which to service that many characters in the theme park sounds insane.
Honest to God, like I can't imagine. I've actually listened to specifically the Pod Meets World podcast, the boy with the Boy Meets World cast, talk about how their time filming their Disney World episode and how it was like, oh, we had like handlers, but like they were pretty hands off, and we just had a good time as like teenagers let loose in Orlando. And that sounds great.
It does. I mean, I will say that you said Full House first. It is the original. I think it was the very first one because it was 1993. I think so, yeah. And I feel like all the other ones were a little later. That was the one that made me feel like, oh, I want that. Like Princess for a Day was not real, but I thought that it was. And we used to go to Disney World every year. And I was so sad when I learned it wasn't real.
Until my adulthood, thought it was real because I also, as a native California boy, we went to Disneyland every other summer, and I remember the legend of King Arthur's sword. If you're able to pull it from the stone, you're like made king of Disneyland for a day. As far as I know, that doesn't actually happen. I don't know that ever happened, but like that's what we all believed as kids, and I feel like Full House was sort of trading on that idea of like, yes, one magical child we put in charge of everything.
Yes.
And of course it's Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen.
I mean, they were the stars of the show. I mean, I understood why Stephanie was upset, but also they were the stars of the show. So you mentioned two separate, Full House, Boy Meets World. Those I think had very distinct what we saw in the park examples. I also think that's partially because of the characters and what they were going through. Like Boy Meets World always felt to me that episode, that's where Corey goes down to try to like win Topanga back. So that
Hmm.
always felt to me like it was more, we're also trying to forward our story here, even though we're doing it in this very special place. Whereas I didn't get that
Not
vibe as
Full
much.
House.
Right, right.
The only like story thread that goes through it for Full House, I want to say, is DJ keeps seeing Steve in the faces of like princes around the park, and Indiana Jones
Oh my God, that
Steve,
was the
which
best.
like for the guy who played Steve, that must have been a great week of just playing goofy Disney characters, like, and
Yeah.
not having to do much.
Although, I mean, I think I might be wrong, but I feel like it all stemmed from the fact that he was the voice of Aladdin and like that had just come out. And so I feel like they started with he needs to somehow play Aladdin in this episode.
Hmm.
What can we do? Which at the time, I don't know that I realized because I was young and I don't know if I
Absolutely not.
got the connection, right? But like it was still really fun to see how even Steve, who is not a part of this family, ends up in this episode.
Well, and like I'll take it one step further. I'm That didn't click for me until you said it right now.
Oh,
Um, and now that I'm realizing, I'm like, wait, I don't think there was an Aladdin parade at Disney World. They might have invented that for the show, like the entire parade.
oh
Because like
wow. I
think
didn't think
about
about
like
that.
look, we go to Disney. We
Yeah.
know Disney.
Yeah.
Like, is there a parade for a movie? No, it's like a
I feel
big.
like when Frozen came out, maybe, but I don't know
See,
that to
I
be
don't even
fact.
know.
Yeah, I'm not
You know
sure.
what, yeah, that might maybe if it's a thing where like it is a cultural touchstone,
Mm,
we have to give this thing its own parade.
hmm.
And Aladdin was that was at the height.
Yeah, that's true. So what was your idea of what your Disney experience would be based on these episodes?
Oh man, first of all, I wanted so badly to eat at the restaurant that has the aquarium in it, and I
Mm.
wanted so badly for like Jesse and Joey to be floating through it because I thought that would be amazing. um I can't really blame these episodes for this, but I do blame Michael Eisner and the introductions to the Disney Sunday movie. I
Mm.
thought I thought Epcot was a theme park that existed entirely inside of the big silver ball.
I did
I
too.
thought I thought the silver ball was so much bigger, and it had like I thought there was like a Canada floor and like a Europe floor, like
No, I did too. The first time I remember pulling up is a weird way to say that because we weren't driving, but like getting to the
and the
front
monorail.
and
Yeah.
seeing, I was confused. I will say that. And I didn't understand I didn't know how big the park was, but I didn't know how they would fit anything inside that.
Mhm.
And then to realize that like you don't, it's just decorative.
Yeah, no, that's
I
like the
will say that
statue
was a
you walk
bummer.
by at the front.
It
It's
was a
got a
bummer.
dope ride in it though. But yeah, it was like I was really hoping for like I can't wait to see how Walt Disney thought the future of the world was going to be living indoors 100% of the time. Let's go.
Although, yeah, I was like, there was that one ride that I never remember the name of where like you used to be able
Spaceship
to,
Earth.
no, you used to be able to choose your own ending. It was like water, air, land, something. And it was based on like what we do think the future is going to look like. And it was like technological
Oh.
invention. And it wasn't innovations, but it was like innovations. I
Yeah.
never remember the name of it. I think it was actually built, someone on the internet's going to yell at me, but I think it might have been built as like an advertisement for some company that was doing.
Okay. This is the thing we need to get out there right away. Literally everything at a Disney theme park was
Well,
built for an advertiser. They like to this day, it's like Autopia brought to you by like gasoline, you know?
mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, so like the Full House one, it was more of like there are rock concerts that happen in front of the castle. They pluck children like me out of obscurity and turn them into theme park celebrities that get to like hobnob with Mickey and Minnie. Uh, they never really focus on the rides much. It's
Mm.
more about theming and lands and everything. And for me as a kid who is terrified of every ride, that spoke deeply to me because I was like, all this stuff can happen without going on a roller coaster. Turns out it doesn't. And everybody wants to go on the roller coasters. But as a kid, that blew my mind. I needed that in my life.
Wait, so I know you didn't bring up Step by Step. Did you watch the Step by Step TGIF episode? Do you remember that one at all? Was that
I I
memorable?
re- I I remember it. If I remember correct, was there I feel like it crossed over vaguely.
It was a two-part episode, but it didn't cross
Okay.
over with the reason I'm bringing this up is because that one was Full House for me was one that stuck out. And then also Step by Step, because everything you're saying that Full House didn't do, Step by Step did. They really showed off the park and the rides, and like not necessarily on all the rides, but there was a
Mhm.
character named Flash who wanted to
Okay.
break the
Oh
record.
yeah, okay. I remember this. Flash was the Cody replacement. I remember
Right.
this.
But he wanted to break the record and he wanted to do
You would rate
every ride,
every
every
ride.
attraction, everything. And so it was this amazing montage of this kid running through the park, obviously getting special treatment, but like running through the park and you're seeing blips of so many of the cool rides. That was one that I had already been to Disneyland, Disney World,
Mhm.
excuse me, a few times, but that was one where I remember feeling like, oh, if I hadn't been here, this would make me want to go here because I'm actually seeing what you get to do here.
So what's crazy is that that thing, that's something that people actually do. And
Oh,
there's like, you can look up scoreboards and stuff and people like, but like, I don't know if it happened before that because yeah, the idea of running through all of Disney World, I have to ride every single ride that at like when you're a kid and you just want to spend your life going to theme parks, that's a dream come true. I love that they brought that to the screen.
mm.
And also that like it's not a very limited view of it. I feel like they hit a lot of hot spots.
Yeah. Yeah, they did. I mean that was I'm sorry to hijack your episode. Like that was memorable for
Oh
me.
no,
It didn't
this is
have to be for
wonderful.
you. But
Once you mentioned Flash, I was like, "Oh, I remember him."
right. And the thing is that I don't really remember him as a character except for that moment, except for like he got the coolest part of that episode, the way that Michelle got the coolest part, I think, in the Full House episode. I mean, other people might have, if you liked animation, maybe you thought Joey had the cooler part because he got to go into the, animator studio or whatever. But I will say that I'm going to need you to justify the love of Boy Meets World episode a little bit because I will say that out of the TGIF episodes that went to Disney World, that one was not one of my favorites. So what do you love about it?
I think I think a big chunk of it is the nostalgia of it. Like that, I was perfect Boy Meets World age. I loved Boy Meets World. I loved it from season one, episode one, because Danielle, I don't know about you, but I'm assuming like most 80s and 90s kids, you were a staunch TGIF fanatic
Yes, of
who tuned in
course.
once upon a time when we would all just tune into this same channel every single Friday because that's what you did in the 80s
Yeah, this keeps
and
coming
the
up.
90s.
I keep having to explain that. And I feel like maybe I shouldn't have to say that in every single podcast episode, but it was true. Like if you missed the episode, maybe it would
There wasn't a
rerun
way to
over the
find it.
summer, but like, yeah, that was it. You didn't, and then you couldn't talk to your friends about it. And then you felt like you weren't cool.
I genuinely am sad that destination television, it's just really not a thing. Even like sometimes, but it's nowhere near the glory days.
I
But
mean, do you, there were a few episodes recently of ABC shows that took their families to Disney World. Did you call those destination viewing because it was like nostalgic and it harkened back, or did you skip those?
I I I didn't even know that happened.
Okay, well, those you can go
Like
online
I've
and
saw.
find. So
Okay,
you
wait,
didn't miss
wait.
them.
Okay,
You
so
just didn't watch them
who
yet.
went? Who went?
Well, home economics went probably most recently.
Okay.
Wonder Years, the reimagining or the technically it's in the same universe. So they did an
Oh wait,
episode
are they
about it.
go? So do they go to old timey Disney?
Sort of. I mean, obviously they shot it in modern times, so they had to really
But
work
like they,
around
yeah, yeah,
things.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean
But
that
like,
and
did they do it better than the Goldbergs? Where the Goldbergs just like shot at the gate?
you know, I don't remember the Goldbergs episode. So, I mean, I
The
remember the
like,
Fresh Off the Boat episode where it was the story was about traveling to Disney. They don't really get there because that was their
yeah,
like they were more of a
yeah.
working class
That's
family.
that's mostly what the Goldbergs one was, except it was like an homage to like National Lampoon's
Mm-hmm.
Vacation.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, you know, we're Holiday Road, we're going to Disneyland, and then they get
Okay.
there and like they get there and it's closed for some reason, which I don't understand because like Disneyland doesn't close unless there's like a pandemic.
Yeah, even with the pandemic, it was
Nope.
still
Or
a
that's true.
good.
Not gonna lie, definitely went to Disney
Well,
way
you can
before
wear
I
a
should
mask. They
have.
sold masks. I bought a bunch of them. And then
Sure did.
the other one was Modern Family, which I feel like I have to bring up because that was also an example of like you have so many characters. How are you doing this?
Everybody tells me that Modern Family is a show that I would love, and I I'm afraid for that to be true because I don't want to watch that many. I don't want to have to watch that many episodes of television.
No, I'm not saying that you have to watch all of Modern Family, but I feel like you should watch the Disney World episode. Or did they went to Disneyland because they were local
Oh,
to California, but the
that makes
Disneyland
sense.
episode. Okay, so these were not destination television episodes for you. That's fine. We can
No,
all go on this journey of discovery together.
but hey, you
Um,
know what? I'm glad that like there's I'm glad the Walt Disney Corporation still owns a network television channel that they can do this with because like I love this sort of thing. I'm glad that there are like whoever the audience is for Modern Family, which is like a lot of people, it's a very popular
yeah,
show.
it was very
That like
fun.
it's yeah, it's the thing that I had, but for those audiences, and that's pretty dope. I like it.
Yeah, that's a
And
really
I'll
good
be
one
honest with
too.
you, the Boy Meets World one,
Mm,
it's age, it's nostalgia. I would say just in terms of like exploring the park, it's definitely the least of them. In terms of like special things happening, it's definitely if it feels the most like a regular trip to Disney.
mm.
It's
That
it's
yeah.
still a little too nice for us normal folk, but like compared to Michelle riding on an elephant because she's king of the world or whatever, like this is definitely a much more gratifying. I wonder if it's because they just didn't have the budget.
I don't know though, because they were pretty, I mean, they were a pretty popular show. And they didn't do this in the first season. It was middle run. It was season 3.
Yeah.
So, and it
Okay.
was at the end of the season. So you have to imagine like they had budgeted, we're going to do something big at
That's
the end of the
true.
season. I would hope it wasn't like
That's
a
true.
last minute, hey, guess what?
And it's not the same as a Full House or something like that where like there's 20 cast members you have to figure out space for. There's the main three and then a couple of others. And then, oh, this is the other thing. And Andrew Keegan is in that episode.
That's true. I mean, I will say I was a big Andrew Keegan fan because I was a big Camp Nowhere fan. So whenever
Love
he
Camp
would pop
Nowhere.
up in things, I enjoyed that episode a little bit more. I don't know what it was for me about this episode. I think it was just what you were talking about of just, the lack of the park. I wanted it to
Yeah.
be I do like that they again we're forwarding the main story. That's very important to me in general on even a
Hmm.
sitcom, even a childhood sitcom. But I mean, if you're gonna have this grand location, I don't want it to just be backdrop. And I don't
That's
know,
the
maybe my memory
yes.
of it is also just not what your memory of it is.
I think you're honestly probably very, very correct. I think when I look at Full
It's
House,
my podcast. I should be. No.
when you look at Full House, like the plot of the episode is the Tanners are going to Disney. The subplots are Michelle is ruining Stephanie's day yet again. Uncle Jesse and his band or the Rippers
Yes.
are playing forever or whatever on the steps of the castle. Like there's like a line of like a line. Didn't I think Danny gets like engaged to
Yes.
Vicky?
I was going
A
to say that
marriage
is the
that
way that
never ended up happening.
they did forward the story in
Yeah,
that way, but I mean, I'm sorry. I
but
was
with Boy Meets World,
1993, I was like 8, 9 years old. I did not care about Danny's
no.
romantic life.
No. Although I thought I had a crush on Vicky. I thought she was
Okay.
very cute with her curly hair. Um but then if you look at Boy Meets World, the plot is Corey wants Topanga back and the subplot is we're going to a school thing at Disney.
Yeah.
And I think that's the problem. I think if like the plot is we're going to a school thing at Disney and then the subplot is like Corey is still a miserable fool. Cause like I'll be honest, guys, you rewatch Boy Meets World now. Corey is worst.
I mean, a lot of the
He's got like Dawson vibes,
Thank
and
you. I was just
Dawson's
going to
terrible.
say a lot of the male protagonists of that time were the same type of annoying and bad. And I don't know what that was about the writers of that time. If it was like, this is who I was, or I'm working something out about someone I didn't like, or I don't know what it was. Yeah.
And then it turns out that like the captivating parts of the show end up being the female lead and the quirky, snarky best friend who like has a
Mm-hmm.
sensitive underbelly.
Mm-hmm. Go figure.
Just saying. Just saying. Sean and Pacey are the same.
But oh no, here come the internet. But here's the thing, even though
Mhm.
these are very different episodes, and even though to a degree we're finding some faults with the Boy Meets World episode, like they were both episodes that you're pointing to and saying these had such big influences on me.
Absolutely.
So what do you feel like, if anything, you learned from them that you applied when you went to Disney World for the first time?
Well, so I didn't end up going to Disney World for the first time until I'd been in journalism for a few years. So like I was an extreme adult and I'd done some research and whatnot, but there were still places that I wanted to seek out specifically from these. Like I didn't eat there yet. It's on my list. I couldn't get a reservation the first time I went,
Mm.
but I went and looked at the restaurant with the aquarium wall
Hmm.
and like that's cool. But now Epcot also has like dining in space and all sorts of other weird stuff that I want to blow money on. Um, I love going on the Indiana Jones ride. And also in Orlando, the Full House episode taught me about the Indiana Jones stunt show. And
Yeah.
the Indiana Jones stunt show is utter magic. And it's exactly, literally nothing about it has changed since they shot that episode of Full House. It's the exact same show. It's awesome.
I feel like you can't really mess with that. I mean, it's a
No,
classic for a reason. But at the same time, I also wonder, are there people in the audience who watched it on TV and then were disappointed by what they saw in person? I hope not. But
I
people
hope
are pretty
not.
terrible.
I hope not. And I will say I think my biggest disappointment is back when when the especially specifically the Full House episode came out, MGM Studios was still a very big deal at Disney World and they were actually producing animation there and they were doing things of that nature there. Obviously, it's called Disney Hollywood Studios
Mhm.
now. All of the actual studio stuff is
Right.
long gone. So like I never got to go to like you've been to like the Disneyana store at Disneyland, where
Mhm.
sometimes they'll have someone in a corner like
Yeah,
drawing
drawing.
cartoon sketches and whatnot. So we have those in the parks, but like never can you actually go and actually see them working on a Disney feature film. And granted, it's 2024, they'd all just be pointing and clicking on computers or whatever. But the fact that I could have gone and watched them make a Disney cartoon like that was such a cool concept, and I'm so sad I never got to see it.
Yeah. No, I mean,
Yeah.
I think the pointing and clicking is still cool, not for what you're watching them do physically, but for
Mhm.
what you know they're doing on the broader scale. It's still a skill, it's still a talent, it's still an art. But even beyond that, knowing like, oh, this is going to be the next huge insert, whatever here. Is it a movie? Is it a TV show? It could be anything at this point.
Now,
Um,
I will say, and this is just something so I can say something nice about Epcot.
uh-oh.
While you can't watch animators do Disney animation anymore, there is this really interesting thing you can do at Epcot where you can watch scientists do like legitimate, genuine science. On if it's the oh my gosh, uh, it's the slow boat ride in the greenhouse, whose name I
Oh,
forgot.
I don't
But
know it either,
basically,
but that's real. I mean, honestly, I do think in the grand
it
scheme of the world, it's more important to teach people about science these days because people are thinking
and
things are not real that are real.
living it's living with the land is what
Okay.
it's called. And basically like what it does, it teaches you that like a lot of the vegetables that are served in Epcot are grown on site in their greenhouses,
Oh, wow.
but they also have sustainable fish and things like that. But then there's also a laboratory where like they're working on like new growing techniques, new
Mm.
plants, new types of fruit, like and as you're going through it's an actual like one wall of their lab is a window and you can see people like doing science and hopefully maybe one day creating something dope for me to eat at like the food and wine festival.
I'm
I don't
sure.
know.
I
I don't
mean,
know. You know.
so because you mentioned that you didn't go until you were an adult, and you
Mhm.
you kind of already touched on this in the, things that you wish you could have seen in terms of the animation, but were there any other pieces of these episodes that maybe you tried to find in the park and it had been massively changed, or maybe it did not exist anymore, that now your memories are only from the show?
Nothing specific. I will say there is a weird vibe thing where obviously when I saw Jesse and the Rippers perform at like on the steps of the castle and it was this big massive concert, I was like, oh, rock music at Disney. This is
Mm.
so cool. Uh a couple of years ago I went to Disney and Disney World and they were filming in the park one of the holiday specials. So they had
Oh
like
yeah.
a big name band who I don't know playing music and it was genuinely one of the most disappointing things I've ever experienced in my life. You couldn't really see what was going on because they had the lights and the
Oh
camera crew
yeah.
equipment all around them. They wanted you to stand behind all the crew and everything and watch at an at eye level like
Mm.
2 song concert, and it was also raining, and it was like I was like, oh, this is nothing like it was on Full House.
Well, yes. I was going to say that the holiday specials slash parade, which is not even a parade, it's all just performances now, which bummed me
Oh
out.
yeah.
But that is probably the only opportunity for, I think, a regular person to see a performance on the steps, unless it's like a special event. But
On
I
the
have,
steps, yes. There are actually lots of concerts at Epcot though all year
okay.
long. And I will also John Stamos performed at Epcot last year as the narrator of the Candlelight Processional. So basically, John Stamos, Uncle Jesse came home and told the story of little baby Jesus.
Uncle Jesse lives there. I mean, I don't know if you read his memoir, John Stamos'
Oh
memoir.
my
Like
God.
he talks about sneaking into Disneyland as a teenager when like the tickets were different, and it's just like this. His career feels
Yeah.
divinely
He
created. I don't
he does
understand how he has had that
he
much
does the kind
attachment
of
to
Disney
Disney.
nerd stuff I would do if I had money.
Hmm.
I feel like, yeah, I want to buy a teacup. Chris Hayner, I don't even like the teacups. I think they're bad. They make me sick. Uh, but I would buy one in an instant if I was a rich person.
But why wouldn't you just buy a car off of a ride you actually like?
If that's available, I'll take that too. In my heart of hearts, I just want to buy as much as possible so I could rebuild as much as possible in like a basement,
Sure.
like a big basement.
I was gonna say I don't really. We all know that a lot of Disney is built underground. There's tunnels and things, but I don't think your basement is necessarily the
Danielle, I'll be honest with
size.
you. I don't have a basement. I would have to go build a basement or find a place with a big enough basement. I don't even want all the park. I just want Pirates of the Caribbean to run
Mm,
underneath my house.
okay, we can make that happen. I don't think that's hard at all.
Oh,
At
wow.
all. Yeah.
Your podcast, it's like, is this like a Make-A-Wish thing?
Yeah. Oh
Yes.
no. I mean, listen,
No,
we
for
we
like,
know people
I
at
don't know.
Disney and they
That's
can't buy
true.
you the house that will be the right size, but I'm sure
I
they can help
if
hook you up when things get
anybody,
refurbished.
if anybody can afford it, it's Disney. Come on. They can afford to buy me that house more than I can.
That's very true, but they won't, is that what I'm saying.
Absolutely not.
Okay, so
Absolutely not.
I don't know. I'm going to be really honest with you. I don't know how to segue this conversation about Disney into
Mm.
the piece of pop culture that is your current influence slash inspiration slash however we want to talk about this, because they are so drastically different. A minute
Oh, I know
ago,
how to do. I know how to
you
do
know how to
this.
do
This
it?
is
Okay,
easy.
great. Because
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah,
a
yeah,
minute
yeah.
ago, I was going to use that like modern Disney to get to modern TV, and it did not happen. So you go.
That's too highbrow. So like, one of my favorite things about Disneyland is the Disney After Dark series of events where you get to go into Disneyland at night. Speaking of night, I love True Detective Night Country. Boom.
Okay, I would not have made that connection. That's great. All right, so
I feel real good about that.
for everybody who has culture shock, True Detective Night Country is the show you want to talk about for your modern influence. I want to
Love
talk
it.
about how much of this is influencing because it influences your career because you're writing about this show versus it's a personal choice, the way that these TGIF episodes were a personal influence.
I am actually not writing about this show. I haven't written a thing about it. And as a matter of fact, I haven't seen True Detective 1. Sorry, Nick Pizzolatto, but also you seem like a not nice person, so I'm fine with it.
I think
Um,
he's okay. He has a lot of viewers, a lot of money. I'm sorry to
uh,
say I don't think he's gonna.
yeah, yeah, like I think you'll be all right.
Yeah.
I did not like 2. I did not like 3. I thought 3 was better, but still also not good. And I shall start this by saying I am a Jodie Foster stan. I think Jodie Foster is one of the greatest living actors, and I would
Yeah.
go so far as to say one of the greatest actors, period. She's incredible, and even though she's had a very noteworthy and respected career, I still think she's underrated by the general public
Mm.
because she should be considered like Jodie Foster should be considered Meryl Streep level in the acting world. She's amazing. Um, and honestly, I think I actually wrote some notes down because I wanted to make sure I remember the things I wanted to say. Not a ton,
Okay. Well, because
but like,
I don't want you
okay,
just
go
to
ahead.
start reading your notes because I want to talk about since this was not something that you quote had to watch for work.
Yeah.
What then brought you in to say I'm going to spend my limited free time with this show that I have not seen any of the previous seasons of, which to be fair to the audience, if you haven't seen, you don't need to watch any of the previous seasons for season
Nope.
4. It's in the same universe, in the same style, but it is its own story and it's much more female focused than any of the previous seasons were. Issa Lopez is the showrunner, writer, producer, director. So totally unique opportunity to get into a show. I'm not saying that you shouldn't. I'm just curious as to what it was that made you say now is the time.
Yeah. I had seen 2 and 3. I did not really care for them.
Oh, right.
Uh
Sorry.
yeah. This honestly, what if it would have been another Nick Pizzolatto season, I probably would have been like, I don't know. But like Issa Lopez, I was like, okay, new person, fresh creative energy coming to this thing. It's basically picking up the baton and trying something different. Oh, Jodie Foster's in it. Oh, John Hawkes is in it. Okay, well, this is going to be my new favorite television show. Like, I love John Hawkes is, I feel, another one of those. Like, he is like a top maybe 2 character actors. Period. Like, he is such an incredible actor, and like, God, I would get to see those two bounce off each
Mm,
other in like a snowy like 30 days of night Alaska setting with no vampires. 30 days of night that like because that was honestly that was the other thing that got me. Like I have family that lives in Alaska and they
mm,
talk about like the long like the like the 6 months of day, 6 months of night situation. And that's fine. It's just, but like until I like see it, and I didn't see it for the first time until the movie 30 Days a Night with Josh
right.
Hartnett, where he's up in like the very top of Alaska. I was like, oh, I know what that world can look like when it's dark all the time and you're in a remote setting. And like that was a really cool, like I love that environment for the movie. So like that also carried over the show. I feel like there's just a lot of little things going for it that was like, we're gonna get our hooks into Chris.
Yeah. And first of all, the fact that you have family in Alaska, now I have a lot of questions about like, well, did you find it realistic? Because they didn't film in Alaska. So I know
Where did
obviously
they film?
Iceland. So obviously a lot of things, snow is snow. You know what I mean? And there are
Yeah.
so many scenes where they're just on the ice in the snow in the dark. So like you can't see your surroundings. It could be anywhere. And then obviously they did their research and their art direction to rebuild things that looked like where they scouted in Alaska. But do you have any of those notes? Does your family have any of those notes of like, did this
D-
look right?
Honestly, did not think to ask them at all. No. What I will say is the way the town was set up really felt authentic to me personally because my growing up my father lived in the foothills in Northern California, and these small towns in the middle of nowhere where it's like 2 storefronts, 5 houses, and then open land, like those are real and they're so interesting to pass through. You're like, oh, for some people, like this like single block of existence is like their entire life. This is home.
Yeah.
And so I can't I obviously I can't speak to the realism of that in Alaska. I will
Mm,
say I hear about the Northern Lights a lot, so that's
yeah.
for sure a thing. But yeah, it's the city felt more genuine to me based on my experiences with the foothills in Northern California. But yeah, it's so pretty. It's so
It,
pretty, but so sad. And I think
well,
that's what makes it work.
so I think there's two ways of watching this show. I think
Okay.
there's because for anyone at home who has not seen, I want to try to avoid a little bit of spoilers because I do want you to all go watch. I think it's a great show, but
Hmm.
I think there's certain setup that you do need, and if you don't know True Detective at all, it is a what effectively it is a crime drama, but then there's also very very heavy character development and character relationships that I think is the second way of watching this, in the sense of some people are coming in because they care about the crime, they care about the who did it and the why, and then other people are coming in because they care about what's going to happen between these detectives as they maybe have to sacrifice some of what they think, what they know, whatever the case may
What
be,
they
to solve.
believe.
Right. So what was your focal point? Did you separate one from the other?
I feel like the immediate, like in the first like 20 minutes, it's very much heavy on the who done it. But then as like the moment I was into Callie Ray's character, like she like who I think has not acted before or has acted very, very
She has,
little.
yeah, but she comes from boxing. So
Boxing.
she's done a
Like
little acting, but this was her first like major role.
I think the thing that got me was looking at her, having a not seen her before, realizing that she is going to be a major player in this show, and she is such a visually striking human being to look at because she has the facial studs
Mm.
and just the tattoos and everything. And then I looked her up online and saw like, oh no, that's not character, that's her. And I'm like, oh hell yeah. She was visually striking enough to bring me in, and then I wanted to know more about that character. And then as they slowly started, I'm feeling like Annie, and then like there's all these. I'm trying really hard not to say anything spoilery.
Well, no, you can talk. I just don't talk about the ending. I mean,
Oh,
because
okay.
although I say that, although I do want to get you to talk about the ending later in a non-spoilery way, because
I think
there,
there is one moment in the ending, like it was literally the moment in the ending that I had to pull my partner aside and be like, "This is what I think." If
mm,
you don't, I don't want to know if people don't agree with me, and I'm sure they don't.
then maybe I won't ask, because there is,
Oh no, it's
as
fine.
the series went on, there was a lot of question of, or rather the season went on, there was a lot of question of who did this, in the sense of, is it a physical human being, is there
Is
something
it a
slightly
supernatural? And
supernatural
like,
going on,
yeah,
right?
yeah, they went really far in tinkering with paranormal in the paranormal in ways I didn't really expect. But what I loved about it is at the end of it, they didn't outright say the paranormal part's not true.
No, and I mean, I don't think that they ever can, because it's what you believe. And so much of it in this show was rooted in what Native people believe and their spirituality, their culture, and like, who are we to tell you that that's not real? So I do think that the ending, as I'm reluctant to say what the ending is for anybody watching at home, don't worry, you do get an answer about like what happened to the the crime, but there is
The
another
inciting
piece of
incident.
the ending. Yeah, there's another piece of the ending of like, well, what does that mean? Where is that person really? That being left open to interpretation on purpose has been very interesting in terms of how people are responding to it, how Issa has responded to it. She has said, I don't want to really give a definitive answer. I want you to talk about it. I want you to come together on, conversation. Um,
That's what I love. I don't want her. I did like good storytelling causes discussion and causes debate and causes arguments. Like I want so badly to debate why I think this happened, you think that happened.
mhm.
Let's talk about why, because at the end of the day, it's not about like proving someone wrong or
Right.
proving yourself right. It's about like there are so many ways to interpret this story
Mhm.
and everyone's going to interpret it slightly different.
So what I feel like I'm hearing you say is that we should put a spoiler warning on right now and we should debate the ending.
Let's
Yes.
go.
All right. All right. So, spoiler alert for anyone who has not seen the
Spoiler
end
alert.
of season 4 of True Detective. We are going to talk about the ending. You will probably be confused if you haven't seen it, but also go watch it and then
But
come
also, you
back.
might be confused if you have seen it. Who
Maybe,
knows?
but I do feel like everybody I've talked to who has seen the ending. So, I am going to tell you how it ends now. So, again,
Yeah.
spoiler alert. There's a narration from Jodie Foster's character about what happened. They're wrapping up things in the case. They're wrapping up also what happened to Navarro, who's Kaylee's character. Where did she go? Because we see the last image we see of her is she's walking out onto the ice, but not in a way that we'd seen her before. Like to me, she seems
Not
like much
scared. She
more
was
right.
at peace. She was at peace.
Yeah, which can be interpreted in a few different ways. But then we do see her again at the very, very last shot is her and Danvers is Jodie Foster's character sharing the deck of a lake house. They don't look at each other, but they're both there. And
Yeah.
Danvers has voiceover about she's being asked about Navarro. Where is she gone? Do you think we'll find her on the ice? What about the sightings people say they have of her in town? And she basically says, I don't think you'll find her here. And there's so many people that I've talked to have said, like, she is there. Danvers is just keeping her hidden because she doesn't want this life. She came in as an outsider. She's just visiting. She doesn't want to deal with these people again. But then there are other people who have said, you know what? No, I think that's her spirit that's still there. Where whatever happened to her on the ice, that's not her physical form. And that's maybe why they're not looking at each other in that scene. And that was not, I will say, I was very confused when I first watched it because I don't come at these shows with an inherent, I believe in these spiritual things. So I know that sometimes we see ghosts on TV, but like it takes me a minute to believe it's a ghost.
Mm-hmm.
So I assumed that she had left and that the sightings that people were seeing were maybe just them hoping they saw her. And then we saw that last shot and I said, but they're not looking at each other. And I wonder if that's an intention to say that like Danvers doesn't know that her spirit is there, or if it's an intention to say they don't need to look at each other because they're at peace with each other. Like their relationship was this love story and like they can just sit in the silence. And like, isn't that supposed to be the best thing about a relationship? I'm not in a relationship, so everybody can yell at me and say, no, it's not. But I don't know. So like I
Well,
kind of
I'm in a relationship. It's either the silence thing or watching hours upon hours of Catfish and Below Deck. It's one of the two.
sure. Well, I
Or
don't think
nothing.
that that was going to be an option on this show, but I mean, but I'm basically what I'm trying to say is that I went from a very firm Navarro is not there to, oh, no, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what I want to believe because I like both options and I don't know that I even want to draw a line for myself.
I think that's basically where I'm ultimately landing. The exact moment I went to my partner, I was like, I know how this ends, and it's that they're both alive and sharing a beautiful friendship together at a lake house somewhere sunny and bright. Realistically, that's like I like Lord like let's be honest, we don't even know when this takes place. This could be in the afterlife for both of them for all we know. This could be a flash forward of some
Like
sort.
you mean the final scene?
Yes.
Ooh, I like
The
that
final scene,
interpretation.
just
It's
thought
like
of that
when
just
they
now and I'm like
die,
it
their
kind of
heaven
makes
is
sense.
this like
Yeah.
lake house.
Their heaven is this beautiful sunny place without snow where they can
Imagine
just
that.
hang out. Like the I do fully believe though that like if that's what it was, they would have gone the extra step further and had like the silhouette of a little boy run across, like her son, like her son.
I don't know. I don't think Issa that feels like a little too heavy-handed for her as a filmmaker.
Yeah,
As a filmmaker. I don't know.
yeah.
I mean,
You're not. Yeah, I think you're probably right. I'm just too heavy-handed in general.
I'm not trying to call you out. I'm
No,
just
but
saying,
I no, I yeah, that you're yeah, because that would be kind of weird. That would definitely be like, oh, okay.
I mean, it would be definitive.
Well,
And I
sure, and
and I think
it
that
would not leave it open to interpretation at
right.
all. Yeah.
And I mean, I think that was also a big thing for Issa was like, I don't want it to be as cut and dry because that's not what life is. And like honestly, the fact that they were even able to solve this crime, that's not very common in real life. So good for them. And they solved the both crimes. Spoiler alert again, because there was a cold case that connected to the modern case. And, you know,
Mhm.
when you solve one, you're digging up things on the other. I will say, I don't know if this was true for you, Chris. You tell me, but like, I will say that one of the things that influenced me the most about this show, watching this show, as somebody who did a little bit of work in production before coming into entertainment journalism, was I had never seen anything like that corpsicle. The
Oh
crime,
my
the men
God.
that are they went out on the ice, they died, and then they froze together in this icicle statue. It was
Disgusting. Look, Danielle, we've both seen a lot of weird things on
disgusting. I thought it was
sets.
amazing.
We've both seen a lot of weird things on sets. There's nothing I wish I could have been on set more to like see and touch than that thing.
Same.
It was horrifying and
Yeah.
incredible. The workmanship that went into making that, like, for the love of God, whoever made that deserves award nominations because that is a thing of beauty. And good luck every other show because like that's just dope. Yeah. So and then we see it in several states as it's melting in the gym because where else are they gonna put it but the high school gymnasium?
In a small town like that, yeah, where that's the biggest space they have, I'm sure.
Oh, it's so strange.
I will say, yeah, when I first saw that, it made me miss the like really heavy craft stories that I used to do at a previous outlet, especially around award season. We would do things where
Yeah.
we would like dissect specific moments in episodes. And I was like, from the minute I saw that, I was like, I clocked it. And I was like, well, I don't do that line of work right now. So like maybe somebody
If
else
I
will do it. Maybe I can read it and hint because honestly, this is publishing during FYC season. Hint, hint, editors at other outlets, free idea. Just get their previs, get all their sketches, get all that stuff, put it in some kind of cool package. HBO, I'm available. It was awesome. I loved it. So
I'll look into that tomorrow when I'm on the
perfect.
clock.
Perfect. I have obviously questions for you, but you said
Yeah.
you had notes, and I don't want you to miss your opportunity to talk about what you wanted to talk about. So
Uh
let's go through some
ba-
of your notes.
okay, so basically I think the thing this show might end up being best remembered for is the casting. The the cast is perfect. Top to bottom, people complete unknowns, people sort of in between. The girl who plays Leah,
Mm,
incredible throughout the show. Haley, obviously, incredible throughout the show. It's just so exciting to I get excited for the shows I get excited for, but it's usually because like, oh, I can't wait to see what happens next. Can't wait to see what happens next. And that happened with the show. But so much was like, oh my God, I can't wait to see what kind of bananas performances we're going to get this week because
yeah.
like throw a rock and hit an Emmy reel for crying out loud. Like it's insane. So yeah, that is a lot of my notes. I feel like, especially with Jodie Foster, this being a longer project, it's letting her dig into a character and
Mm.
live in a character she really hasn't been able to before. And yeah, I'll censor myself. Isabella Starr LeBlanc, who plays Leah, is going to be an F word star.
You don't have to
I
censor
love, yeah.
yourself. It's the internet. But yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. She's gonna be a star. That her and Kaylee are both crazy talented people that I think after this are going to be getting an insane amount of meetings to pop up and everything. They're basically going to be the cast of The Bear. That's that's how I'm choosing to look at it. That they're gonna be doing how like the guy from The Bear is now in the Fantastic Four movie. That's them.
Right. I I like that the way that you called him, Eben, the guy from the bear,
Yeah.
because he's done so many other things, but only blew up in the bear.
Yeah, yeah,
Whereas
yeah.
with this, I think it's the opposite. I think
They haven't
these
done
are
other things.
unknowns,
Yeah,
right? Yeah. I just thought that was a funny comparison.
I hadn't even thought about that. Yeah, but no, I really think those two, like obviously everyone knows John Hawkes is a wonderful actor.
Mhm.
People, guess what? People have heard of Jodie Foster. I feel like this show specifically for those two women is
Mm,
like going to blow them up huge, and like I'm here for it. I
yeah,
love it.
yeah, very great.
Uh
I mean,
oh,
I don't disagree with anything you're saying, so this makes my
I
job harder and easier at the same time.
um I think one of the things that made the show so thrilling and scary is how quiet it was.
Mm,
It's like there are big chunks of the show that are almost silent or just the sound of wind.
yeah.
And like, holy cow, it makes even the slightest rattling of something in the distance downright terrifying. I love when shows pay attention to that, so like the sound design of a scene, because like especially in quiet scenes,
Mm,
way too often they're not quiet. They use
right.
the quiet, they use the quiet as sort of a bed for putting a bunch of noises to really freak you out. This was so sparing with it that I really, really love that.
But I do have to ask, when you're talking about like the fear that comes from the quiet, are you talking about the fear in the show of like what's coming around the corner, or the fear of like, oh my God, these guys were out there in like negative 30-degree weather in the middle of the
Oh,
night doing
they're
this for real? Like
fine.
that wind sound is real friggin' wind.
That I hadn't even really thought about the fact that they were filming this in Iceland.
Okay.
Um, oh my God. Have they? Oh my God.
I mean, to be
I
fair,
see.
they had some indoor stuff. Like not everything was
Well,
out on those caves were
sure.
built indoors. So there were times where they
Wait,
had to act.
are you telling me that was not a real ice cave?
I mean, listen, I would not have put it past them to find real ice caves in Iceland when they were actually on the real snow for as long as they were. I'll say
I'm
that.
assuming there are bars in Iceland built inside of ice caves.
I mean, there
That feels
probably
like
are, but
something I would
not
see.
like this kind of creepy ice cave that you need.
No, no. This is a very specific murder ice cave. It looks dangerous just by looking at it.
Yeah. Okay,
What,
so
yeah, what other questions did you have? I'm very I and I want to know, I definitely would love to know more about how you felt about the season as a whole.
so I am with you in the sense of I did not like I watched 1, 2, and 3, and I
Okay.
did not particularly like any of them. And I know
Oh,
that
okay.
one was always like heralded as this masterpiece, and I did enjoy what it did for the form and the format in terms of it's a Western. We don't really see those, well, Justified, but we see very
Hey, well,
few.
yeah.
I know.
Let
I
me let me talk to you about a little universe called Yellowstone.
No, well,
Aren't
this was so far
those are
before
westerns, right? Oh
Yellowstone.
yeah, this is way before
Yeah,
Yellowstone.
no, I mean, like when it was on, I watched it initially. So it was, I don't really care about that genre one way or the other. I don't dislike it normally, but I'm not like seeking them out either. I just, there were moments where in season one, especially, I remember not enjoying is this paranormal? Is this supernatural? Things that they would throw in. And especially with that one, felt like, no, it's definitely not. Stop wasting my time. I
Mhm.
didn't feel that way with season four. I think a lot of the reason why is because it's rooted in the culture, and it was a
Yes.
different vibe.
It had meaning and it had purpose. Like it felt
Yeah,
authentic.
yeah, it wasn't just like we're just trying to take longer to explain the whodunit and throw all these red herrings at you. I will be honest and say I don't have a solid memory of seasons 2 and 3. I watched season 2 for Taylor Kitsch only and was disappointed. I don't really remember season 3. I believe I finished it, but I might not have. And then season 4, very similar to you, I could not watch it with someone like Jodie Foster involved. I love her. I've loved her for a long time.
Mhm.
I also feel like this genre, this kind of crime genre with the cold case and the modern case is my jam. I want complicated cases. And I knew we'd also get complicated characters, but I was like, I'm here for the case. And I hope I also like the characters because they're new and I don't know because I've watched 3 seasons of the show not really caring about the characters and only really watching it to see what the case was. That was not what happened this time. I was invested in all of it. I also will say that I personally I don't want to make this sound like I saw it coming because I didn't entirely
Mhm.
see it coming, but at one point I did say I really want it to be this. I really want this to be what killed those guys. I was sort of
Were you
right.
right?
And it was very validating. I was
What?
right in the who, not in the how.
Are we still in the spoiler zone?
Yeah, I don't know if we should say who. I feel like it gives away too much if people know.
Okay,
I
yeah,
mean,
you're right.
you know
You're
what I
right.
mean? I just like if you're a fan of crime genres and you're watching this for the case, I don't want you to know who did it when you're starting watching it. I don't want to be the one to say that to you.
Am,
If people are
is it
listening and they
wrong?
want to know, they can go Google it. I just don't want to
Yeah,
be the
yeah.
one to ruin it for them.
Is it oh, am I allowed to give you what my reaction
Yeah,
was
you're
at
allowed
the
to do
time
whatever
of
you
doing?
want. You're allowed to spoil it. I
Okay.
just don't want to
Cut
spoil it.
cut to me looking at my TV. Hell yeah. That was it. I
Nice.
was very into it. I was like, this is a cool ending. It's a good, it's like a from a storytelling standpoint, it's a good and an interesting one. It's
Yeah.
also just dope as hell.
And I also just feel like, and when I say, I don't want to say I feel like I saw it coming because I feel like that cheapens what they did. And I don't mean it to sound that way, but I feel like when you look back, it's the thing that made sense. Like you can go down your roads and do your good detective work and try to say, what if it was this person? But none of it would have made sense. This is the only thing. And I think to me, that is the tell of like a smart writer of like, I know the story I'm telling. I know who did
Mhm.
it from the jump and I'm just working out how the cops figure it out because it's
And what's
not easy to figure that out.
no, no, no. And on top of that, like thematically, it the actual killer is so incredibly on point with the purpose of the
Yes.
entire season and the story it's trying to tell that like oh my god like everything about it hit for me so hard.
Same.
And like feel like you like were looking for shows that are like speaking to you and inspiring you and like helping like this watching this season made me want to try creative writing again because like
Wow.
it got me like I haven't done creative writing in like fictional writing, we'll
Mhm.
say. I haven't really tried fictional writing in a decade because like I don't know if your listeners know this, but when you're an entertainment journalist, you don't have time to write other things usually.
If they, I will
Uh
say that if they've listened to other episodes, comes up, comes up a lot.
yeah. Like spoilers, we love telling stories just as much as we love being told stories. And it wasn't until watching this season I was like, "Oh my god." Like it gave me a little bit of that itch to be like, I should start thinking
Mhm.
on some story things because I know I have stories I want to tell and I think they'd be really interesting. They may not be, but like at least like it made me want to reach out to that creative outlet again for the first time in a while. And I am eternally grateful for that.
That's awesome. I mean, it's gonna sound weird, but like that's kind of why I started the podcast is because like I wanted to do something. I don't know that I can call this entirely creative because you're
This is pretty
giving me
creative.
more than half of what this is, right? Like it's only as good as the answers are and the guests are. When I left journalism, I intended to hopefully pick something up for fun, whether I started a newsletter, whether I started to work on a novel that I put down a long time ago. And the months just rolled by without me writing at all. And I was like, that's telling me something. I am either very tired or I'm just like sick of my own voice in writing, but I want to do something that's kind of still pushing all of this forward and shepherding all of the creativity that other people have. So I'm glad that this show did that for you because I feel like it was one of the things that did that for
Absolutely.
me as well because I was formulating this idea a little bit earlier than when I actually started it. And I was watching, this is one of a few shows that I was watching at the time. So I'm glad it worked out for everybody. Hopefully the next time you come
It's
on,
just
it'll be because you're like your now influence will be the thing you're promoting because you'll have like sold a movie.
I'll be promoting season 3 of Big Kid, aka the season that like literally is just because we were talking about the mall. So I'm
Oh,
gonna do a whole
yes.
season about the mall.
Don't give it all away now, but yes, yes, that works
It's
too.
gonna be glorious.
It's gonna be
But no,
great.
yeah, yeah,
Well,
I
thank
am.
you for coming
Yeah,
on, Chris, because I this was
thank you.
great. I loved all the things you chose to talk about. And don't anybody go anywhere because I do want to say if this episode did inspire you to watch any of the things that we've talked about today, I'm going to tell you where you can find them. The preface I need to give you is that I'm telling you where to find them as of the taping of this podcast, because we do know that streamers like to remove things at any given time when contracts run out.
I'll
And
just note the Chris Gethard show is on YouTube.
we didn't even talk about that. Okay. Please note, Made Possible by Pop Culture is not sponsored by or getting any perks from me listing this information. I just want you to be able to watch the shows that we've loved so much. So we talked about Full House. That's available on Hulu and Max. We talked about Boy Meets World. That's available on Disney Plus. Step by Step, I brought up, I don't know if anyone cares, available on Max, and True Detective Night Country, also streaming on Max. And I know we brought up a few other ABC shows that were recently in the Disney parks. I believe they're all on Hulu, but I didn't know we were going to talk about that, so I didn't look that up ahead of time. So maybe don't quote me, but you can check Hulu because I feel like they're Disney shows, they'd be on Hulu.
Also, Full House not on Disney Plus because it's a Warner Brothers television production.
I mean,
The rare non-Disney production that went to Disney World.
the politics, you guys. Anyway, thank you, Chris, for coming on. And everybody, if you like what you're hearing, please like, comment, subscribe, and we will see you very soon.